everybody, welcome back to the Scrapbook Pal YouTube channel. My name is Marla and I'm with Matt about cards and crafts. Today I'm bringing you some summer vibes. We're going to create a slimline card featuring products from Hero Arts. I have this woody car which is called Beach Car Fancy Die. It has that cute little surfboard on the top. The Hibiscus Fancy Die, which is going to have the hibiscus flower and some foliage. This gorgeous Water Ripples 6x6 red rubber stamp. Then from Pinkfresh Studio, I have the Slim Diagonal Stitched Plaid die. That's an 8 3/4 by 3 3/4 die. I'm using shimmer powders for the first time, so I have Atlantis Burst, Blue Blitz, Falling Leaves, and then finally I'm going to bring in the Jade Fountain. I am going to create kind of like an ocean vibe background for my little card. I am a Southern California girl. I love the ocean, so anytime that I can bring the ocean to me here in the desert where I live, I absolutely love it. So I have spritzed this 4x9 panel, which is Canson watercolor paper, with some water using my Tim Holtz Distress Sprayer. Then I just tapped on that Blue Blitz. I'm going to bring in the Atlantis Burst, and the Atlantis Burst is kind of a soft blue-green color. And then finally, I'm going to bring in the Jade Fountain. I'm not sure that I will come in just a little bit later, I think, with the Falling Leaves. But right here, I'm starting with just these three. I'm tapping them on in different areas. And I'm not looking for texture on this, so to speak. What I'm looking for is just to mix these colors to give me kind of a Caribbean vibe. I'm looking for more of that turquoise color. And I think that I was able to achieve that. You can let me know. So I'm going to spritz it with a lot more water. You're going to see a lot of warpage on my paper. One way to avoid this would be to tape your panel down. That's one way. You could run this through your die cutting machine after you're finished. I've just added a little bit more water, and there I'm getting the movement that I'm looking for. Or there is a third solution, and I'm going to share that with you on camera. Now, I didn't get that bottom portion very well, so you can see that the middle is beautiful, but the edges I just need to work at a little bit more. So I am going to come in with a little bit more color, and we're going to remedy that. I thought that these were really pretty. I love the colors that I purchased. I think that those were perfect, but and see, look at that green as it's rolling through that blue, that turquoise that I've created. But I wanted a little texture, not so much watery texture, but I wanted the texture from, I like the way that it when you tap it on, I love the little dots that you get. So once I dry this with my Ranger heat tool, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to lightly tap on a little bit more of that, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water, not quite as much as I did on the first couple applications, but enough to get it to kind of spread out and move a little bit, but to give me that little bit of texture on that background. And I think that it turned out nicely. So here is my magic solution for straightening out my panels. Once I dry this, it's going to curl pretty good. And then I'm going to bring in my mink machine. This mink machine, once I heat it up, I'm going to put my panel in between that copy paper, and then I'm going to run it through a couple of times. Easy peasy, quick and easy. My panel is very straight. And I'm going to show that to you in just a moment after I get through this second pass. All the products that I'm using will be listed in the description box below. So even there's going to be a couple products that I didn't share with you in the beginning. Even those will be listed. If I don't have a link to the ScrapbookPal channel, at least you'll have an idea of what products they are. Here is the beautiful Water Ripple 6x6 cling mount stamp. This is gorgeous. Oh my goodness. I just was so impressed with this stamp. I just have so many ideas and ways that I would like to use this. I started out by adding some Distress Oxide and Peacock feathers. Then I brought in the Mermaid Lagoon. I decided I was going to blend it with my brush rather than trying to not contaminate my pad. And so then finally I brought in the Evergreen Bough. You'll see that there's going to be one spot that I'm going to need to really fix. And once I get that fixed right here, I'm going to add a little bit of that Mermaid Lagoon. We are going to take that panel and we're going to use our Hibiscus fancy dye, everything but the stamens. So I use the 2 leaves, I use the hibiscus flower, and then I use that big foliage leaf. Next, I ran it through one more time, and then I'm taking my panel and I am using that slim diagonal stitched plaid and I'm cutting that down. Here's the stamen for that hibiscus. I am coloring it with a Copic marker in yellow. And now I'm going to create some squares for my card. So I have Vintage Photo right here, and I'm going to do some ink blending on some Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, just some loose ink blending. And I'm going to bring in my Lawn Fawn dies. So I have both the small and the large dies. I'm going to off camera figure out which ones work best on the card panel. I'll use that die and I'm going to cut it out 3 times. So here I'm going to bring over my die cutting plates. I do have a Vagabond, and so I will run it through my Vagabond 3 times. And when I finish with that, I'm going to bring in a Tim Holtz 3D embossing folder in lumber. So I'm going to pick this up. There's that beautiful lumber embossing folder. And now I'm going to add a little bit more texture to these little wood grain pieces. So I have some ground espresso. I'm lightly running it over it with my blending brush. And then I'm going to bring in the black soot. And that'll give me that lovely variation in color, because we all know that wood is not one color. And it's going to add just a little bit more to that beautiful texture that you get with that 3D embossing folder. When you use the 3D embossing folders, they do run through the die cutting machines just a little differently. So for mine, I have to remove one of the plates, and then I only use one of the die cutting plates when I'm running it through. And that allows that 3D folder to work. They're a little bit thicker than a regular embossing folder. Here I'm just showing you that I have a little bit of fun foam. I'm going to glue that to the back of each of the panels. I'm only going to show you one, and that will help me pop up my panels. And now I'm using a T-square ruler to make sure that I at least get my squares on straight. And I'm going to glue these down. I did use the wood grain is going vertically as opposed to horizontally. And then we're going to start building our card. I did cut out, if I didn't mention, some more hibiscus flowers using white, Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. So I'm going to mix the two. I really love white with teal. I colored that woody die cut. I was just showing you the die cut. I did color it using a couple of Copic markers, some YR markers, and some brown markers. I tried to add a little bit of wood grain to it, and it's okay. It's probably not my favorite coloring. I probably need to work on my hand-drawn wood grain, but I think that it still came out nice. And here I'm just coloring a couple more of those stamens. And we're going to start gluing and putting everything together here. So I use art glitter glue. It is moving into April. Easter is just around the corner. So the art glitter glue should be shipping shortly. Here I'm adding some tape so that middle section does pop out, but I wanted to pop up the blue that I cut out from that water ripple panel. So I'm just taping the back of it, and then I'll glue those flat. So that one I'm gluing flat. I'm going to tuck in this piece of foliage and one of the leaves. And see how pretty that white looks in the background? I thought I didn't want to be too busy with too much pattern and too much blue from that water ripple pattern paper that I used to cut those hibiscus flowers out of. And I thought that the white just broke it up nicely. Here I'm getting some little foam dots, and I'm going to add these foam dots to the center. And then I'll line it up. It's really easy to line it up. The leaves are very different. All of them are so very different. And there I'm popping that up just a little bit. Now I am going to add some foam tape to the back of my car as well. So there'll be a little bit of foam tape. I do that off camera just to the front end. So you know that I did add that foam tape to those wood grain pieces. Therefore, the front of that woody that's hanging over needs a little bit more stability. So off camera, I did add a little bit of foam tape to that, and I tucked it in after I adhered it to the panel. Here I'm adding those stamens to my hibiscus flower, and then we're going to work on the bottom piece. Now I did, because you can see that I don't have that warpage on that watercolor paper, I was able to glue it down using just some art glitter glue. And a lot of times if I have a piece of paper that has a little bit more warpage on it, then I'm going to use some double-sided tape for that because it's just a little bit stronger. But for this, I was able to glue that panel down to my card base. I do create a 4x9 card panel, so I take Neenah Solar White 110-pound cardstock. I cut it to 8 inches by 9 inches. On the 8-inch side, I score it at 4 inches, and then I use my bone folder. This is going to give me just a little bit of a border all the way around my card, and it's going to tie that white back in. So here I'm just trying to figure where I want that card to go. And once I figure it out, I'll glue it down. And then I'm going to put this foliage behind it just to keep the continuity here. So you can see that I've used the same pieces behind the car. I did choose to use the water ripple paper just so that it added just a little bit more interest to that background. And then I'm going to add one more. So instead of just having the one, I'm going to have 2 on this piece. I'm going to bring in my card panel and I'm going to glue that down to it. I will add some enamel dots to the center of my hibiscus flowers. That'll give this just a little bit more texture. Does that not scream summer? Ugh. I am a super fan of summer, so I loved this card. Once I add those enamel dots, then I'm going to come in with some Nuvo drops. They're the clear ones. I always forget what the name of those drops are. I will have them listed in the description box below, but I will come in with some of the Nuvo drops. And when I do, I'm going to add it to the window just to give it a little more interest. And I will also add it to my hubcaps. So here's where I'm adding that enamel dot. And then we're going to work on the inside of the card. I have some leftover florals. I typically don't decorate the inside of my cards, but I had some leftover florals and I thought that because there's so much real estate on a slimline card that it would be really pretty for me to just add that to the inside. So I will add that to the inside of my card. I do take a sentiment from my stash. I'm going to stamp it using some Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide, and that's going to be my card for today. If you like the video, we would love for you to give this a thumbs up, leave a comment, make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. I hope you enjoyed this presentation today. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks so much for watching.